Good afternoon. My name is Tom Holman. I'm the Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It is an honor to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity to join Attorney General Sessions and thanking our many law enforcement partners throughout Miami-Dade County for their partnership with us. We're working hand in hand with the Department of Justice when it comes to enforcing our immigration laws and protecting America. I want to recognize Mayor Carlos Jimenez, who is with us here today in the front row. Thank you for your leadership, sir. I understand that Juan Perez, the director of Miami-Dade PD, couldn't be here today. I want to recognize his hard work to help establish this relationship. By bringing dangerous sanctuary city policies to an end, law enforcement will be able to more effectively carry out our missions and protect our communities. The men and women of ICE are dedicated law enforcement professionals who are committed to public safety and ensuring the integrity of our immigration and customs laws. Simply stated, ICE is going to enforce the law. This is our sworn duty, that is our job, and that is the law. To my fellow ICE officers and agents in the audience, I thank you for the privilege of serving beside you. A strong and active partnership with local law enforcement like we have here in Miami-Dade helps ICE accomplish our mission safely and effectively. Without cooperation between ICE and its local partners, effective law enforcement is nearly impossible, creating significant risk to both law enforcement personnel and the general public. Make no mistake, sanctuary jurisdictions pose a threat to the American people by refusing to work with ICE. Allowing egregious criminal offenders back onto the streets is reckless, and it puts everyone in the community at risk. Without question, it's much safer for everyone, including the arresting officers, if we take custody of a removable alien in a controlled environment of another law enforcement agency, such as a jail, where we know they don't have access to weapons. When an officer has to knock on the door to arrest a violent criminal on his turf, the dangers are immense, and the results can be catastrophic. There are 21,183 names on the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial in Washington, D.C. Not one name should be added because of sanctuary city policy. Not one. There are thousands of victims of crimes committed by aliens who are in the country illegally. Those are preventable crimes. And there is no justification for releasing a public safety threat back into the public when they are already in the U.S. in violation of federal law and have committed yet another crime against our citizens and have the potential to reoffend. Just this morning, I got the most updated stat. As of July 31st of this year, nearly 10,000 criminal aliens that were released to the streets rather than being turned over to ICE have committed yet another crime against the citizens of this country. Preventable crimes, preventable victims. Here are just a few life examples of criminals we've been able to keep off the streets here in Miami-Dade because of the cooperation here. A Guatemalan alien charged with disorderly intoxication with outstanding warrants for lewd and lascivious conduct with a minor, a child, was not released to the street because of our cooperation here. A Honduran alien convicted of armed robbery, the known member of the violent Sueño street gang, is not walking the streets. A Spanish alien charged with domestic battery by strangulation and has numerous criminal convictions to include multiple batteries, robbery, and drug possession is not walking the streets. When local jurisdictions refuse to cooperate with ICE and knowingly shield criminals from immigration enforcement, they not only put officers and the public at risk, but they also create a magnet for more illegal immigration, encouraging aliens to pay smugglers to be taken to what they believe is a safe city. As a result, these policies help to bankroll the very criminal organizations that smuggle people, weapons, drugs, and criminals who want to do harm to this country. You can be sure, as long as there's those politicians that want to dangle the carrot of sanctuary city, many more people are going to die trying to enter this country legally. It is truly sad that there are politicians that care more about their political ambitions than they do about the very citizens they are supposed to protect. Let me be clear. Entering this country illegally is a crime. So is concealing, harboring, and shielding from detection those aliens who have illegally entered the United States in violation of immigration laws. State and local politicians cannot be in the business of shielding people from the rule of law. And it's my hope that more jurisdictions will hear the message we're sending today, and an example set by Miami-Dade. To all the frontline officers here today and around the country, I thank you for your service. Your commitment to the rule of law, to protect and serve this nation, is the foundation on which we will continue to thrive. At this time, I want to introduce a man who is committed to that rule of law. He is the defender of our country and a big supporter of public safety and law enforcement officers throughout the country. It is my honor to introduce United States Attorney General Jeff Sessions.
Thank you very much, and Tom, thank you for your introduction and those comments. As you know, Tom Homan is he's a straight shooter. He does it like it is, and he's a man of action. He gets things done, and I'm pleased. I couldn't tell you how pleased I am with the leadership that we've had from Homeland Security, ICE, Border Patrol, our Customs officers, and the DA, and the Inspector's Investigation Office, and I appreciate that much. I want to thank all of you in law enforcement that are here. We know how important you are. We know that crime and public safety cannot be done without our state and local officials as well as federal. Mayor Jimenez, we appreciate you and your hospitality and leadership here. It was great to talk with you. I didn't realize he came up as a fireman. He understands public safety and understands what it's like to be out there at risk for your public, for the public and public safety. Had a good conversation with Marco Rubio this morning. We talked about a number of issues, and he expressed his regret he couldn't be with us today. I want to thank our acting United States Attorney, Ben Greenberg, who's been here. I see Ben. There he is. Very good over here. So he and his team do a great job. And I got to tell you, we respect the United States attorneys. We know the value that they play in making this a safer and better country, and we're working hard to put together a great team of United States attorneys. Miami-Dade State Attorney Kathy Fernandez-Rundle is here, I believe. Is she here? She's been a great partner in helping us combat violent crime. So I again would say we're totally aware in this Department of Justice the contributions that state and local law enforcement plays to public safety. 85% of law officers are state and local. We will not have improvements if we're not working hand in hand with that large cohort of people. The federal officers are fabulous. We have really additional capabilities that we can bring to bear, but collaboratively, that's how things work the best. We've had a tough weekend in Charlotte. I know you've all been following that. I want to thank the state and local people and the federal people that worked so hard since those tragic events there. We cannot, and in no way can we accept or apologize for racism, bigotry, hatred, violence, and those kind of things that too often arise in our country. I would say that the state people were engaged aggressively. Saturday night, the FBI was interviewing people in Ohio. They're moving aggressively in a collaborative way, using the interstate capabilities that the federal agents have, as well as the on-the-ground capabilities of our state and local law officers. So I'm honored to be in Miami-Dade with you today. And so I'm always impressed when I visit this area. The city keeps getting
Security Council,
bigger.
they had the unanimous vote about a week and a half ago. China saying that it will commit to...
cities in America. That is good news indeed. And as you know, this was not always the case. When I became U.S. Attorney in 1981, and Stanley Marcus was Judge Stanley Marcus now was my cohort here. I remember the challenges that you faced. Violent crime surged, drugs were too prevalent, police regularly recorded upwards of 500 murders a year, and the city was in danger of crumbling. But the people of Miami-Dade refused to tolerate this violence, and last year, the homicide count was barely a third of what it was in the 1980s. How many hundreds, how many thousands of lives were saved in this city because of proactive, improved community policing by your police force? It wasn't easy, but this place has truly earned its nickname of the Magic City. Congratulations, Mayor. And your success is even more remarkable since the violent crime is surging in places all over our country now, including the historic rise in the nation's murder rate of 11% just year before last. And up again last year, the preliminary statistics indicate. Miami-Dade is an example of what is possible through hard work, professional policing, and a dedication to the rule of law. It's proof that the entire nation gives us an example. All of us can do better throughout this country. It's not impossible. Crime is not some force of nature like a tide coming in. It can't be confronted or dealt with effectively. We can make a difference, in my opinion. I've seen it happen, and I know it can happen. During the last administration, the Department of Justice Inspector General, our Inspector General, sent 10 letters to jurisdictions they had reason to believe were not complying with federal immigration law. Last week, we sent a letter to your mayor, and today I'm here to announce that Miami-Dade is now in compliance, full compliance, and eligible for all federal law enforcement grant dollars. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership. This is good news for law enforcement and for the citizens of Miami-Dade. It means more money for crime fighting. It means we're partners together in keeping everyone safe. Unfortunately, we have areas of the country that are not doing so well. Chicago, that just sued us a couple of days ago, is not following this example. This is give you some numbers that were surprising to me, and I think important for us to consider. Really, it says something and challenges us all. In Chicago, a city of almost exactly the same 2.7 million person population of Miami-Dade, more than 433 people have been murdered just from the beginning of this year. They expect to hit over 700 by the time the year is out. That's more than 3 times as many as in Miami-Dade. Last year, Chicago's 2.7 million residents experienced more murders than the 12.5 million people who live in New York and Los Angeles combined. The Chicago Police Department also reported more than 4,300 shooting victims. In the first half of last year, violent crime across the nation increased 5%, but in Chicago it increased 24%. The most fundamental duty of government is to ensure the safety, which is a part of the liberty of its people. Respect for the rule of law is broken down. In Chicago, I suggest the so-called sanctuary policies are one sad example of that. Every year, too many American lives are victimized as a result of sanctuary city policies, whether it be theft, robbery, drugs, assault, battery, even murder. Here's how it works right now for us. After the police arrest an illegal alien in sanctuary cities, charge him with a crime, they fingerprint and book him in the jail. When federal immigration authorities learn that this criminal alien is in Chicago's custody, they can issue an arrest warrant and ask the city to either notify them before the criminal is released or to transfer him to federal custody. But the leaders in Chicago have made this a political issue and direct their police to refuse both these requests. Instead, the police are forced to release the criminal alien back into the community without regard to the seriousness of the crime or how long the rap sheet may be. This is a serious problem for the people. A few years ago, an alien was arrested and had his license revoked for driving under the influence. Shortly after, he was arrested again for driving with a suspended license. After Cook County ignored ICE's detainer request, refused to honor it, the alien drove under the influence once again just a few months later, and this time he struck and killed a skateboarder. Tragically, in another case, an illegal alien was convicted of aggravated domestic battery. ICE lodged an immigration detainer, but again the county did not honor it. After his release, that same alien murdered a 15-year-old girl and shot her mother. She was only 15 and could be alive today if the Chicago's leadership had prioritized safety over politics. Sadly, we know Chicago is not alone. Just 3 weeks ago, Sergio Jose Martinez was arrested in Portland, Oregon. He was an illegal alien who had been deported at least 20 times. Police reports show he was arrested at least 10 times just this year, accused of everything from possessing drugs to stealing a car. Federal immigration authorities properly lodged a detainer against him just a few months before, asking to be notified when he was set to be released. But authorities in Oregon refused. According to allegations, Martinez then broke into the home of a 65-year-old Portland woman by crawling through her bedroom window. Once inside, reportedly he forced this woman to the ground, used scarves and socks to blindfold, bind, and gag her, and then raped her and slammed her head into the wooden floor. How can these politicians hear this story and do nothing? How can they look in the eye and tell her into the eye and tell her they did nothing to stop this from happening? It's not an aberration, really. This is happening all over the country, as Tom indicated. These policies do far broader damage to the country than many understand. At its root, it is a rejection of our immigration laws and a declaration of open borders. They openly say, we are a welcoming city. Come into our city, and we won't even tell the federal police when you commit a crime if you're here unlawfully. It says if you enter the country last week with a criminal record and get to Chicago, for example, we will not even support deporting you even after you commit a serious crime against one of our citizens. This is lawlessness. It makes no sense as a matter of policy. It's not moral or legal. And these lawless policies do more than shield individual criminal aliens. They also shelter and protect lethal gangs and transnational criminal organizations like the Latin Kings, the Bloods, MS-13. These predators thrive when crime is not met with consequences. This state of lawlessness allows gangs to smuggle guns, drugs, even humans across borders and around cities and communities. Sanctuary jurisdictions provide safe harbor for some of the most dangerous criminals in our country. That makes a sanctuary city, really, in a way, it's fair to say, it makes that city a trafficker, smuggler, or a predator's best friend. Now, I want to be clear about something. Local police are not the problem. They risk their lives every day in the service of law and the people they protect. The problem is these jurisdictions tie our police officers' hands and endanger federal immigration officers, as Tom said, when they're forced to pursue these criminal aliens outside of the jails and prisons. Yet these sanctuary jurisdictions have the gall to feign outrage when their police departments lose federal funds as a result of their misfeasance or malfeasance. So we want to do everything that we can to help state and local law enforcement. President Trump has sent me an executive order, and it was pretty simple. Reduce crime in America. That's your mission. Reduce crime in America. Now preside over some new rise after 30 years of decline in crime. And that's what we intend to do. But these grants we have can help in crime reduction. We want all cities to have them. But we cannot continue giving taxpayer money to cities that actively undermine the safety and efficacy of federal law enforcement and actively frustrate efforts to reduce crime in their own cities. So, if the people in Chicago and these other cities are concerned about losing money, I suggest not call me, call your city council and your mayor. The city's leaders have even gone so far as to claim that these sanctuary city policies help reduce crime by encouraging illegal aliens to report it when it happens, but no evidence supports that claim. To the contrary, I would note, for example, that in Chicago it had one of the lowest murder investigation clearance rates in the country. Only in 1 out of every 4 murders is a suspect even identified. Far from making the city safer, these policies likely make cooperation with law enforcement more difficult. If there are no real consequences for the criminal, no witness will risk their life to report the crime. They come forward, report a crime, the criminal's back in the street in front of their house the next day. This is not something people want to see happen to them. It means criminals walk free and victims must suffer in silence. And what does it say to the most vulnerable communities when even the police are unable to keep repeat violent offenders off their streets? Rather than acknowledge soaring murder counts or the heartbreaking stories told by victims' families, this city, Chicago, has chosen to sue the federal government. The mayor complains that our focus on enforcing the law would require, quote, a reordering of law enforcement practice in the city. But that's exactly the point. For the sake of the city, Chicago's leaders need to recommit to policies that punish criminals instead of protect them. They need to protect their citizens and not the criminals. Americans, all Americans, have a right to a full and equal protection under the law. The people of Miami-Dade know the rule of law guarantees equality and opportunity. It's essential for financial prosperity. Protecting this guarantee is why the government of Miami-Dade made its decision and is working with the federal law enforcement, not against us. And that's critical because it shows that this jurisdiction is serious about protecting its citizens from danger and its law enforcement officers from any unnecessary risk. In fact, the majority of this country believes that all cities should do the same, and most do. The vast majority do. According to one poll, 80% of Americans believe that cities should turn over criminal aliens to immigration officials. Certainly, I'm not surprised at that. Leaders in jurisdictions like Miami-Dade, Lansing, Michigan, Westchester County, New York, believe it too, which is why they have stood up for the people they serve by choosing the rule of law. So to all sanctuary jurisdictions across the country, I say Miami-Dade is doing it, other cities are doing it, so can you. Work with us. Please help us enforce a lawful system of immigration that keeps us safe and serves the national interest. That's what the American people want. They've asked that of their politicians for 30 years. We've been at 1.1 million people a year lawfully in this country to permanent legal residence. Green cards, 1.1 million. No country is close to that. We need a system that says, make your application, wait your turn, and do the right thing. Do not attempt to enter this country unlawfully, and particularly to criminals who want to come into that country. Maybe they're being run out of their hometowns. We don't have no obligation to admit or to allow such people to stay in the country. The Department of Justice will not concede a single block or a single street corner in this United States to lawlessness, drugs, and crime. Nor will we tolerate the loss of innocent life because of a handful of jurisdictions that believe they're above the law. So I know this city and county will be an example of the good that comes from following the law. We have already seen that. The same Independence Day weekend, when Chicago suffered more than 100 shootings and 15 homicides, Miami-Dade also had a historic number of shooting deaths. 0. I hope more jurisdictions follow the leadership of your community by choosing to follow the law, because we all want to do the same thing, to protect our families, defend our countries, make our country safer, make our cities safer, make our country more prosperous. So thank you, Miami-Dade. And to all the law enforcement officers here, state, local, federal, I look forward to working with you to do just that. This Department of Justice has our back. You have our thanks. Thank you all, and God bless you.